Hey guys, it's Matt. Thanks to Asana for getting me to finally watch more than a few minutes of this Inside Job on Netflix. Going to specifically, in a few minutes, get to season 2, episode 7, Project Reboot, which has the largest presentation of the Magenta regarding a reality overwrite, factoring in the Mandela effect. We're going to dive into this episode in just a minute. I turned it on for a few minutes when it first came out. They're in season 2. I don't think it's going to be renewed for a third season. I watched a few minutes. It was like, I'm not going to watch this horse shit. Constant mocking of those that investigate truth, that don't just bow down to whatever's presented on the news. I watched the Pentaveret with Mike Myers through because it was the same old, butt and fart jokes, and it was really crude and over the top. But there were some parts that were kind of funny. I watched the Pentaveret, but I turned it off a few minutes into the first episode. There's going to be some truth here. It's mostly a deception, even for people that investigate what we investigate. They get a lot out of this sort of thing. Of course, it's an over-the-top deception, constant Pentaveret, Illuminati type stuff. There's going to be some truth, but it's going to try to throw us off, as well as cement to people like my friend Tony his belief set. Oh, they're making shows about guys like Matt now. What, hon? They're making shows about guys like Matt now. Just cements in his mind how crazy I really am. Honey, I thought you were going to give him the chance. You finally said because he's such a good old friend, you're going to sit down and look at some of his stuff. I was going to, but they're making cartoons now mocking these sons of bitches like Matt, so I ain't going to do it. So, again, thanks to Asana, we have this Project Reboot, Season 2, Episode 7. The very first scene, some bus stop in the Mojave Desert, some guy out there, and Project Reboot, a wave of magenta comes over the entire reality. It's the theme of the entire show. I'll show you I'll show it to you in just a second. There it is. A wave. It's just 1 second. A wave of magenta. And Route 69, I guess, changes to Route 96. And it's just like the Mandela effect. The wave of magenta creates a new reality. When we're watching the cartoon, it seems like there's a date of change, but to those it happens to in the cartoon or in the real world, when it happens here, there is no date of change. It ripples back through all of time. It always has been. What exists now always has been. And 99 point whatever percent go along with it, so they're past memories. They believe it always has been. Only a few for each change see the change or see there was some sort of date of change. Even those that are Mandela affected, I believe this stuff happens every day, and we reset to 99% of it anyway. So guys, this magenta presentation in this episode, out to mock truthers and conspiracy people anyway, was so over the top. I mean, it's in every scene, almost. It's the concept behind the entire episode. I said, I've had enough of this horse shit. Looked at some of Steffer's old notes. I said, I haven't talked about the emerald green and the magenta in the book yet. Have a whole section. Need to insert this here. I just sat down and started writing. And there's not a whole lot. I'll read it. It should be about 30 minutes. I'll read it to you once we get through this episode Project Reboot of Inside Job. In this particular scene, a wave of magenta rolls across the entire United States, in some way turning the United States into a satellite of the Soviet Union or of Russia. Very similar to what was it, Netflix, The Man in the High Castle, where the U.S. is split between Germany and Japan, having won World War II. So it becomes that. The wave of magenta. The U.S. is now a satellite of the USSR. In this cartoon, it always has been. I don't mean to stray too much, guys. I'm looking at the image that you're looking at. I don't know if that's an aloe plant there before. There's something about the aloe plant that's very important to them that we haven't identified yet. I see it pop up. I've never talked about it, except I think very briefly, the beginning of the Disney movie Soul, maybe the first 10 minutes where he is with his class playing piano. You'll see the aloe plant just switches position, or it's there and it's just gone when the camera comes back 2 seconds later. Something that is very important to them, and I believe that might be another aloe plant there in front of the wave of magenta. But either way, it is very much like how the Mandela effect works, the way it's presented in this cartoon. The best way to think of the Mandela effect, in my opinion, whether you see it You have anchor effects or you don't. You're just a open-minded person and believe enough of us have talked about it for so many years that there must be something to it. The best way to think of it is not about Kit Kat dashes, in my opinion, and trivial little crap. It's look up at the sky today. Well, if you can see it, you're not in the plane's landing, and and it's all. If you can actually see a blue sky where you are, consider yourself lucky. But look up at it. Best way to understand the Mandela effect is, it's blue. Has it always been blue? Well, yes, of course it's always been blue. Yesterday, it may have been, pick a color, red, whatever. Yesterday, it may have been a different color. There's all sorts of changes to reality, or a fluid reality, in my opinion, that happen all the time. There is no date of change. So if that was a Mandela effect, the sky became blue, it ripples back through time. That's the way this reality works. It will always seem to be that. It will be part of your childhood memories. And in the case, I'm not saying that that is a Mandela effect. I'm just using that as the best way to understand. If it was, though, there'd be a tiny little group of people that remember a, quote, red sky or something else. Then in some Mandela effects, there isn't a tiny little group of people that remember, and it's even coming up in this cartoon, Sinbad in a movie called Shazam, or Dolly with braces. In those cases, millions of people clearly remember what they call anchor effects. This movie, Yesterday, is about basically the Mandela effect. I don't think the word Mandela effect is mentioned even once in the movie. It's a must-see if you like the Beatles' music. If you just kind of like the Beatles' music, I think it's still a pretty darn good movie. He's just playing his guitar in front of his friends. Yesterday, I'm not going to sing it. And they're like, what are you singing there? The friends are like, and he's like, the Beatles? And they're like, what group's that? We've never heard of them. And so they're eliminated from his reality. He's the only one that remembers. The reason I'm mentioning it is he's always afraid to be found out. I'm not going to give this away if you want to see it. There's one part in the movie where people in the back, he's about to play or give a press conference, and he's still paranoid. Like he's just recreating these Beatles songs for himself. He's coming out with like, "Hey Jude," saying it's his. So he's slightly concerned at all times. These people in the back of the room, if I remember correctly, they hold up a yellow submarine. And he's like, oh shit, have I been found out? Well, there's again, it's just like the Mandela effect. Tiny little group of people, other than himself, remember the Beatles. And I won't say if they expose them or not, but it's very similar principle. So to finish up with Inside Job before I start the Emerald Green and the Magenta reading, again, it's called Project Reboot. These waves of magenta happen a lot, and each time they create a completely new reality where there was no date of change. Again, it always, what exists now because of the ripple has always existed. And is this going to be a factor as we talk about what they're, quote, trying to do with the magenta? This isn't material to what we're talking about, but I have to show you this. So again, waves of magenta. A new reality pops up where one of the group of five, I don't know who these people are, or I don't know the whole backstory of Inside Job, but one of the five, like main characters like in Scooby-Doo, is in this new reality the head of some Illuminati clan with the robes in the back, and she's sitting on, it's the all-seeing eye above the Sununo's horns, and she's got, I wouldn't even be showing you this, she's got Lin-Manuel Miranda, and she's like all powerful when she just was a regular person. She's like, I'm going to get Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton to do his bad rapping. And he's like on his knees, like crying in front of her, and he's doing his bad rap. To me, I was like, that's a truth drop. He never could sing. You've heard me talk about my friend Lin-Manuel Miranda before. He could never sing, dance, or rap. It was all a presentation to convince people that the stinky bad was actually good. It's like, this is what I've been saying about Hamilton and how much it sucks for years. Ain't throwing away my shot. Ain't throw away my shot. I'm young, scrappy, hungry, just like my new country. That sucks, Lynn. Sucks. Last thing from the episode before the reading, I had to show you this. In the first few minutes of the episode, one of the guys in the little group, I don't think they say the word Mandela effect. It is written a few places in the episode. He's pushing Sinbad in the, this huge Mandela effect for a lot of people, the movie Shazam. He's talking about it. No, it never existed. No, you're confusing it with Shaq in Kazam. And I just thought it was odd how this is pushed so early on in this particular Project Reboot episode. And guys, if you don't, this is not a Mandela effect for me. This is not an anchor effect at all. But to me, this is one of the absolute biggest, creepiest ones I've ever researched or heard about. Now, okay, 30 seconds or less, all these millions of people, or how many ever remember that Sinbad was in a movie called Shazam. Of course, the movie never existed. It doesn't exist in this reality. They've asked Sinbad. He said he didn't make a movie. Nobody has an old DVD or VHS copy. Of course, these people are confusing it with Shaq in Kazam, or now the new Shazam movie makes it even worse. But I've seen videos, or I've seen blogs and threads where these people, they actually talk to each other about certain scenes. Do you remember when Sinbad does this? He walks around the corner, then he meets, and the person's like, yeah, he meets this person. They can talk to each other scene by scene about the movie that never existed. That is one of the most amazing MEs to me, even though it's not one of mine. For the reading, I'll just stick with this image for the remainder. I don't know, it's going to take 20-some minutes at least. Of course, every time I watch the weather, let's go out to our live shot of Philly on Market Street and whatever, but down by Temple University, or whatever it is. Oh, this is the Philadelphia Free Library. I remember talking about it because the Free Library. Like, what magenta are you going to show now? Oh, the whole damn thing is lit up with the emerald green and magenta, and I scream out in front of two cats, is anybody surprised? All right, this is the first draft of what I wrote up for the book. If Steffers or anybody else sees that I'm missing a key part here, please come to me and tell me what I'm missing. And regarding Steffers, no, there is no channel. Where's a channel? There's no channel to direct you to right now. She has a full family. She blogs. If she gets back to blogging or ever has a channel, I'll be the first to let you know. The magenta and the emerald green. The amount of emerald green presented by, quote, the screen, not just the movie screen, that means all of society and culture at the outer ring. The amount of the emerald green presented over the last 30 years is significant, but subtle, meaning it was somewhat hard to notice unless you were kind of looking out for it, or seeing or knowing what we know now looking back at all of it. However, when one paid a bit of attention to what was being presented all these years, the emerald green color was all over the place. Like the famous lighthouse scene at the end of The Great Gatsby's dock, looking out to Daisy, emerald green. Jumanji is a massive truth movie centered around the emerald green. Romancing the Stone, the color of the Green Lantern, which is the power of will. There are thousands of other examples if we wish to catalog it. Now this brings us to the magenta. In 2021, the use of the color magenta by the screen was a presentation the likes of which I'd never seen before. Once a person became a bit in tune to it, it was all over the place, this magenta presentation. Now, some people will tell me, it just seemed like that, Matt. Just seemingly magenta to you, Matt. It was all over the place in every movie, commercial, all over these billboards, because, Matt, you're looking out for it. Now, I'm aware of that. Of course, I'm aware of that variable. I factored that in or discounted that tendency. That's not it. Trust me, it was everywhere. It truly is, or was, and continues to be all over the place. So much so that I'm not going to provide many examples. It's the color of the year announced in 2022 for 2023. We have system puppets like Shaq running around in his commercials screaming magenta as he's shuffling around ink cartridges. There are thousands of these types of examples at this point. Finally, in 2022, we started to see the constant pairing of the emerald green and the magenta together. From Tears for Fears concerts and the lighting flashing between the emerald green and the magenta, all the way to the Aurora Borealis itself, the Northern Lights itself, and everything and 1,000 things in between. So what the hell is going on? When it's this strange and complicated, we have no choice but to return to the absolute basics. This is a world, a reality constructed by consciousness. It's a world and reality constructed by consciousness. Without you, who knows what would be out there? Now, most people walking the street carry this notion that objective reality is solid. There is an objective reality no matter who we are. We're not a key ingredient in the soup to most people walking the street. Like they would say, if all humans just disappeared, the earth, the moon, the stars, the trees would still all be out there. No, they wouldn't be out there. At least not in the same sense. Consciousness comes first. This is no revelation from Matt, no revelation from anybody recently. They've known this. The ancients known this for thousands of years. The Kabbalion and all this shit, we know that. Which means the exact opposite, Stephen Hawking's Big Bang, is nonsense. Complete nonsense. This understanding is the reason why stuffed Lenins, like If a Tree Falls in the Woods, is artificially carried through time. This notion is why that stuffed Lenin exists. You know, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to get crushed by it, does the person who's pinned under the tree make a sound as he's screaming out in agonizing pain? Age-old Humpty Dumptys like this tell you that consciousness came first. One last time for the back of the Amish Hamish classroom, that means that reality as you know it doesn't exist without you, me, and real people. Our senses, the senses of the body, take in narrow bands of information that's available to assist this construction of reality. Vision is the easiest one to understand. We see along a very narrow band of Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, that's all we're given in order to see. Just outside this band, though, on either side is, on one side's the infrared. Starts with Roy, right? Red down the left side. Roy G. Biv. On the right side, past the violet that we can see, the ultraviolet. So a rock, a tree, or a being, or an alien, that reflects back those frequencies, ultraviolet, infrared, on either side of Roy G. Biv, something that reflects back those frequencies cannot be seen by a human. Of course, there are many more frequencies than this. Microwaves can't be seen. X-rays, gamma rays can't be seen, etc. Now, that's the first sense, vision. Hearing, coincidentally, it's the same way. It's the same as vision. It's just a narrow band. You know, a dog whistle, like, I can't hear a dog whistle. You know, it's the same way. We're given a narrow band. You'll see how this is a repeating theme. Taste is the same way. What is the tongue? The back of the tongue is salt, underneath's bitter. You get nothing from taste. It's even more limited. Smell is the same way. Dogs don't just smell better, they smell more. So, of course, I must assume that touch is also the same, that I'm just getting a narrow band of what's available. But is that a bit crazy to anybody listening? Like, all the other senses exhibit the same type of behavior and the same things going on, but touch, that's going to be different. No, there's nothing that could be the... No, of course it's going to be the same. Why wouldn't it work the same as all the other senses? Yes, there are things there that cannot be touched. Okay, so where are we right now? Pause for a second. We know that real people's consciousness is part of the construction of reality itself. We know from the last segment, all we have to work with regarding inputs to somehow create that reality are the senses, and we know they're very limited. What the body can take in via the senses is very limited in terms of what we're given to process. Therefore, if there's a nefarious actor here, I call the screen, the ass all dark, or the plumber's ass crack over reality itself, if there's a nefarious actor who can control the inputs, in theory, they could control the outputs, which is reality itself. Some people say our senses over time have been dumbed down, or a governor placed on the senses, or what humans could perceive in the past and forced us into these narrow ranges over time. Who knows? That sounds plausible and probably likely to me, but nevertheless, we are where we are right now. You know, but maybe this is what the 10,000 superhero movies are for in the last 15 years. All they can pump out with any degree of success, and now even these suck. These superhero movies, thousands and thousands, it seems like superhero movies. And what it's saying potentially to all the dummies that go in to crunch their popcorn, it says, look what you dumb sons of bitch humans could do in the past. We're showing you how incredible the human once was. In general, maybe. Not with every specific superhero, like some guy had some green ring that this shit could come out of, or Mr. Fantastic, the Fantastic Four, he's stretched. And actually, what's the other girl that stretched? In the what is it called? The Disney's Incredibles, they had the Elastic Girl. Remember? What if she dated Mr. Fantastic and they both stretched? That would make for an interesting evening, wouldn't it? He might as well skip dinner, go right to the damn motel. This segment here, okay, get back to this is about the two colors and then the linking of the two colors. Okay, I'm not going to speculate how the other senses potentially can be used nefariously with input-outputs. We're going to look at how vision, potentially, and our creative abilities regarding reality itself is potentially being used nefariously to create the output that they want. Although we could continue this conversation with other senses, like hearing. We have the 440 versus the 432 megahertz, was it? 432 versus 440. We have that battle. So in that way, sound used nefariously. And again, it has to do with you're either going to buy this or not buy this, depending on if you think the human being is an input-output device for reality itself. Again, it seems like that resonates with me. That ain't my original idea. It's been around for thousands of years. It's said from a color perspective, magenta is somehow the opposite of the emerald green. But this color conversation gets confusing very, very quickly. I think it's meant to be confused by the not-nilk screen reality at this time. But I don't think the specifics about the exact colors are necessary. All that matters is what they're trying to do to you. That's all it comes back to every single time. So they say magenta, some say magenta has no wavelength because it doesn't appear on the Roy G. Biv. It doesn't appear on that spectrum. So how could it be the opposite of the emerald green if the magenta has no wavelength, but we can see it? So if we can see it, doesn't that mean it must have a wavelength or a frequency? Matt, it's an illusion of. I don't really buy that. I really don't. It's your mind makes the magenta because it can't. It's two other colors. I don't really buy that. It doesn't. See, here we go in the weeds. If the magenta is being used nefariously, all it matters is to see it. Put your armor up. It wants us to dive into this. It's confusing the color conversation on purpose. It's an obvious not-nilk tactic. Back in the second grade, it was pretty simple. I remember the teacher was, here's your three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, right? And then you would just slop them all over your paper in front and mix them, and wow, this is making other colors, mixing them together. It should be first grade stuff. When you go to investigate what are the primary colors today, it's confused. I'm telling you, this is a not-nilk tactic. It's reality going nuts in some way, bleeding through. I remember doing this weeks ago. It doesn't make sense how the colors are confused. And there's YouTube videos, and even the people that they don't investigate what we investigate. But she's saying, I don't like, this is so confusing, and it doesn't have to be, or it's being confused at the fundamental reality level. I'm sure of this. This is how not-nilk operates across the board. I just searched it. See, do I remember going through this weeks ago? What are the three primary colors? Here it comes back at the very top from Google. Red, yellow, blue. But then there's an image that pops right up showing the primary colors for additive, what would be presented to us in second grade. This says green, blue, and red, not yellow, blue, and red. So there's confusion as to what the three primary colors are. Guys, I'm telling you, this is a not-nilk screwing with reality tactic in some way. The people that talk about this shit on YouTube don't understand reality the way we do. It doesn't make sense. It's almost impossible. And when I talked about this months ago, somebody emailed me, Matt, I'm an artist, and really the primary colors are green, blue, and red. There should be no confusion here if the world is real, guys. It should be first grade. But then you get into subtractive. They make it even more confusing. You make an inkjet, and you have that fraud Shaq pushing your inkjet. And I went into Staples the other day, and they have these giant cardboard cutouts of Shaq. And I threw up into my mouth. I was like, no! Get him away. I'm not going to buy anything here unless these cardboard cutouts are taken down. Giant cardboard cutouts in Staples of Shaquille O'Neal. Is there anything more repulsive in the history of the world? Forget, he's yelling, oh, I got to replace the magenta. And see, in the inkjet, it's subtractive. They have the magenta, yellow, and cyan to build back primaries. Look, this whole reality on purpose is becoming a bastardization, adulterization, and inversion. This is all not milk tactics, things I'll never know more about than what I'm telling you here. The point is, I will always try to bring you back to what's important. All this horseshit, what we're diving into now, does not matter. Please do not comment about what the primary colors are, or try to inform me, or turn the comment section into a color conversation. That's exactly what it wants. All that matters is we notice something nefarious is happening. We then use it to make our armor a little bit stronger. That's all that matters. All right, let's pause, see where we are. To me, to Steffers, I believe, to some other smart people, the emerald green and that color presentation has been going back hardcore 30, 40 years. It's a representation of the illusory reality. This place is very fluid. It seems like it's very solid and very real. It's not. The color, emerald green, that shade is associated with nature. It's associated with the heart chakra, the emerald green matrix code falling down in front of Neo and Morpheus, and Kermit the Frog. Even though the creeps have presented the emerald green as Satan, as literally Satan in John Carpenter's The Prince of Darkness. And the emerald green was this evil spell called the Fel in the movie Warcraft that the orc wizard made his portal out of. It's been used very, very negatively in the past. To me, the positive outweighs more than the negative. There's a positive in and of itself via the emerald green. I'm not just going to look to what the creeps are doing with it as much as I'm going to look to the color itself. I don't get the same feel when I look at the magenta. And the magenta, I've never seen it used 1,000 ways where it's helping people and 1,000 ways where it's hurting people, other than the damn flower that reflowered them. It's still something that can be produced in nature. So it's something that luckily, hopefully, cannot be completely corrupted by the creeps. But to me, I don't fear the emerald green. I more embrace it. I think it's almost like a signal as to what this reality is, not something that's trying to transform this reality using the human input-output device. It almost seems like they tried in a way to hijack the emerald green, and they weren't quite successful. Or this is a new era. Their AI, Matt, is way above schedule. That's going to work into the emerald green or the magenta conversation in a moment. So that was the past era, the emerald green. This is the era. We're smack in the middle of the era of the magenta. And it seems blatantly nefarious. I will keep on the table that there's a double agent thing going on here, that the magenta is bleeding through reality. It's a wonderful thing for humanity, and they're going to then get in front of it and hijack it so people like Matt start talking about it negatively. I will keep that on the table. I'll never cement my positions in. But right now, go back to what we were talking about, the cartoon coming in called Inside Job, and the Bono and Edge presentation or concert in the Ukraine subway. I mean, I don't get a good feeling. The Viva Magenta presentation as color of the year was very, very disturbing. Sorry, I will keep on the table. We're being used to turn this beautiful thing that's coming to save us into something that the creeps can use nefariously, but I don't buy it right now. I'll never snuff that out because I'm not going to be used the way we've been used in the past. So at least for right now, I have no other option than to continue this conversation thinking about it very negatively. I just want to let you know I'm not locked into that in case anybody's screaming at me. So here we go. Since 2022 or so, even before, the color magenta has been presented so many times in so many different ways that I've got to jump right back into this conversation, at least for 45 seconds. I'll be very brief. It's absurd because the presentation, thousands and thousands of times it's popped up, and we're discounting for the fact that we're looking for it. So it's absurd to say that each movie director or each album artist, here we go again, they got the phone call from the Pentaveret to make sure they used the magenta background. The phone call came in from Mike Myers and the Pentaveret that says, make sure you put the magenta bulbs around the Philadelphia Free Library. Make sure it bleeds through a key scene in your movie. Okay, having it all planned out, we're beyond this, to me, is ridiculous. You might think something else. Let's move on. To me, the recent magnitude of magenta proves the human download. Let me say that again. The number of times the magenta has appeared, even over the last 6 months, to me is, additional proof, like we already had proof, of the human download and what we've suspected for years. The screen reality, or the slimy outer ring of reality, reaches its sticky hands down into the heart center of real people. It wants the outer ring reality right now, of course, wants the magenta all over the place. Of course it does. What exactly it gets out of that, we'll speculate. I'm not quite sure. I haven't been to no Eyes Wide Shut party recently. But 99% of the people who carry forth what it wants, 99% of the people that screw those magenta bulbs in and light the Philadelphia Free Library of it, are the people that paint their album covers or do this or that with the magenta or make this TV commercial. Even with Shaq, 99% know not what they do. They're simply carrying out the wishes of the outer ring or the outer screen. Maybe a few, like the CEO of T-Mobile or something at that level, understands quite a bit more. 99% know not what they do. They push the magenta. They'll pick that as the color they're going to use for the Derelict campaign. What is that? Is it Derek Zoolander's new campaign with Mugatu was the Derelict campaign. Derelicts. You just dress like a bum. That he would use magenta if Zoolander was pushing that today, but they wouldn't be in on it. They're on the frequency on the radio station, so they're going to do what the outer screen reality wants. Don't forget the input-output. If you don't buy that, this whole presentation then breaks down. The human, I'm not using their terms any longer whenever I can avoid it. The human as the input-output device for reality itself. If the old guy is saying, yeah, Matt, that's the way it works, or the old guy is saying, yeah, I can see that, then we can continue this conversation. If you don't see the human as a necessary input-output device for reality itself, then none of this is going to resonate, but you probably do. Why else would you be here? And again, it's not my idea. Kabbalion, consciousness comes first, all that shit. So the amount of magenta, as we'll see in this next section, yeah, it's planted, okay? But it's also a bleed through, in my opinion. Bleed through into reality itself in some sort of as above, so below type thing. Why are you assigning that term to it? I don't know. Just came to me. I'll think about it more later. Like there are people in Norway that have written me, people in the UK who have written me. They swear to me that they look it up at the Northern Lights and it's 50% magenta red and 50% emerald green. And they're like, there's no way, someone in Norway was like, I've been watching since I was a kid. It's been always like 95% emerald green. The magenta was not there, or the magenta was not a big part of the Northern Lights. So we're not just talking about Kit Kat dashes. We're not just talking about a Shaq commercial. We're talking about reality itself, the Northern Lights. The people are saying the same types of things from the Southern Lights or Australia, but I don't have a gigantic sample size on this. I'd like to collect up more information. There's three major factors regarding the magenta conversation that need to be considered here. Number one, of how it's working. The easy one. Intentional magenta input. The magenta. Intentional planting of certain types of bulbs behind Bono and the Edge in the Ukraine subway station. Putting into media. Having the person that produced the Shaq commercial know exactly what the Pentaveret wanted out of presenting that commercial. Everybody in on it. Okay, yeah, that's happening. Of course. Might be a small percentage in terms of the number of times we've seen it. Okay, number two. People who create album covers, for example, with magenta, or they produce TV shows, or lower level people, and they make some films and they make some commercials, and they're just choosing to use the magenta because they're choosing it on their own. Just, it's pretty, we want to use it, oh, it's hot right now. They might say that. They might be influenced a bit by the magenta being the color of the year, so they're influenced by that, but they know not what they do. They're not getting a call from the men in black and the pentaverate. Matt, why are you so big on the pentaverate? I don't know. When I was watching the Inside Job thing, and all that Mike Myers shit just kept coming back. So in this one, they don't really know what they do, but this is also proof of the Human download, or the frequency or radio station. Oh, I'm going to choose this color. They're doing exactly what the outer screen reality or the outer ring wants without knowing they're being influenced in that way. 3, the magenta is bleeding through into reality itself as a side effect of some kind. Could this be the change to the aurora borealis itself? A bleed through into what we know as like real reality? Yes, it could be. Okay, absolutely needs to be kept on the table. Okay, I have little examples, not the aurora borealis, but I've seen weird examples in reflections. It should be a bright white reflection. I've seen the emerald green paired with a magenta in that reflection I talked about on the tile floor. Okay, people have shown me pictures. I said, Matt, look at this pixelation in my phone. On this computer, it looks great, but on this phone, it pixelates in the magenta and the emerald green. What's going on here? There's been strange cuts and freeze frames that people have seen and I have seen on TV where the screen locks up for a second. It always seems like when it locks up and there's a glitch, it's like a magenta. I'm on the phone or the Skype the other day with Steven, and I was like bathed in magenta for 2 seconds until my camera adjusted. It was like, he was like, Matt, are you being spied on by the AI? Yeah, probably, but maybe not. We're pushing, we think big here. All the possibilities are on the table. I took a still shot of Tom Brady talking to Terry Bradshaw about, it's not quite the Kennedy to Lincoln synchronicities, but the synchronicities between Tom Brady and Terry Bradshaw, that 35 years ago, Terry Bradshaw checked into a hospital under the name Tom Brady, and all these things started to match up. It became a little mini presentation of the Kennedy to Lincoln synchronicities. So I take a still shot of Terry Bradshaw interviewing Tom Brady for his 6th Super Bowl win or whatever, and there's a big like swath or whatever, if that's even a word, across his cheek. I might have showed it to you before. Big magenta like smear across his cheek. Of course, that smear wasn't there when you're watching the video. It just happens to appear here in my still frame. Okay, we have all this stuff. To me, all of this, you might not agree with 1 or 2 of my examples. You certainly might not agree with the aurora borealis, but it's a bleeding through of magenta into reality. If you believe the human can be the input-output device in that human's senses. So there's 3 possibilities in summary here. Intentional magenta input. Matt, of course, the people that lit up the Ukraine subway for Bono and the Edge knew to use the magenta. They were in on it. Yes, of course they were. I'll give you that. I don't know the percentages here. There's definitely, they're in on it, okay? And there's creeps that know things. That's one. Number 2 is a bigger group, people doing what screen reality wants and knowing not what they're doing. They think they choose the magenta themselves. They did not choose the magenta themselves for that album cover. The screen chose it for them, and they just weren't aware of it. Okay, that's to me thousands of more events. Then when the color pops through reality itself, whether it's a little reflection on your wall or potentially the aurora borealis itself. No, I'm not taking that off the table. That is not crazy at all after all that we've seen, as long as we've been doing this sort of research. All right, let me address the objections. Many people have already started throwing rubber duckies. They'll swear to me, Matt, the aurora borealis has always been 50% magenta and a blend of the magenta, the red, and the emerald green. The people that keep giving me that argument don't understand how the Mandela effect works. I don't think they understand how reality works. Okay, I'm sorry to be blunt. Matt, it's always been that way. Well, that's exactly how a Mandela effect works. You're right. It has always been that way to you. That's how it works. There's no date of change. When something happens to reality, anything, change in the aurora borealis, Australia shifts, a Kit Kat dash, there is no change. What exists now always has existed, because those that can perceive a date of change moves back through time. It always was that way. Standing up screaming, I remember as a kid, there was red in the sky. Do you understand? That means nothing. We all reset and we all remember what always has been. Okay, now I've said that enough. You're either getting it. I know most of you do, but if you don't get that by now, you're not gonna get that. Now, the creeps understand that's hard to get for most people. Could you imagine somebody stumbling upon this video? Try to book me into the room, book me into a white room. Any family member hears this presentation, I'm doomed. I'm done for. I won't see next Thanksgiving, maybe from an asylum. So they send out their shills like Fiona Broom about the Mandela effect. And the reason for the shills to go out, they're sending out like the flying monkeys, and she no longer says fly my pretties. She just says fly, fly, no longer my pretties. They're sent out there, people like Fiona Broom, to trivialize the Mandela effect to a degree. All the shills do this. They trivialize it with Kit Kat dashes and little tiny movie lines, and to cover up that these are changes to reality itself. Whether it be Australia, the Aurora Borealis potentially, or a Kit Kat dash, there is no difference. They want everybody to focus on, it's just the little stuff, even if it is a change in reality, and even if you guys who supposedly are falling for the psyop of the Mandela effect, even if you're just going along, let's say you're right, and you crazies really do see that there was another reality. It's minor. Interview with the vampire versus A and the Kit dash. Who cares? Yes. It wants everybody that doesn't see it focused on that little trivia shit because you don't see it. No, this is happening. If you see it in the Kit Kat dash, then it's happening across the board. And one last time, if I see certain changes, I have 5 things that are anchor effects. That doesn't mean everybody that's affected is going to see the same things. Even the people that are affected all see different things. Someone can come to me and say, Matt, look how strange Chick-fil-A looks. And then as in this example, Chick-fil-A does look strange to me. But I could say, it's always been that. I remember as a kid writing out CHICK. There is no consensus among even those who, quote, can see. Okay, this last one, this bleed through, is probably pretty hard to accept unless you're serious old guard. So it's like, try to present as much magenta, get real people focusing on the magenta, and okay, yeah, here we go again. Matt's focusing on it. Matt, you're contributing to it. Okay, I address that every time. Okay, but then the back end of it is a bleed through, and that's more. I don't know if they're mostly looking for the bleed through or they don't want the bleed through, and it's like giving away what they want to do. Okay, I don't know what their outcome or their ideal outcome is. I don't know if they're like, oh shit, the Aurora Borealis is half magenta now. We're taking too big a bites. Or they might be like, oh, yes, master. Yes, it's becoming what we want. I don't know if they like that or not, the bleed through. But the bleed through is like, as an example, there was this place we used to go, me, my dad, some of his friends, in this place in Norristown that had spaghetti with clam sauce. It can be horrible but when it's right, oh my gosh, that's good stuff. But it had huge chunks of garlic in the oil sauce and the butter sauce. It's so much so people would reek of the garlic the next day. It's nothing. You can't brush your teeth and get rid of that shit. It reeks out of your pores. That's a bleed through. That's like magenta bleeding through reality. Hey, again, this is the first draft of the book. I'll work on that example. To me, I think to Steffers, a few other smart people, the magenta represents like the next phase, technology, AI, and digital, but almost too, the next phase of where the creeps want to take real people in the future. To me, the renting of the Carl Weathers movie, Action You Know What, okay, the renting of the movie, you know what I mean? That came out and everybody started doing it in 2021. To me, what's my best take? It was preparing and assisting the human being in some sort of transition, a transition in technology or in reality or the future that they want to set up. So Matt, you think the renting of the movie was to help help people actually move into the reality that they're trying to create in the future? Some sort of way for them to help transition? I do. All right. They have a place out in the future, how they want the human to be, how they want the human to act, and how it will fit in to this new digital world or digital reality. Okay. Today, they're using really old, antiquated shit. The straw man. Today, they're basing their trick based on old 19th and 18th century shit. First name all caps, last name all caps. Ha ha ha! If we can get people to believe that that is really them, and then that's how we can hide them from their spiritual selves. They're using a bunch of backward shit. They've got this high tech stuff ready to replace the antiquated straw man. First name caps, last name caps. Tomorrow, it'll be your digital twin stuck in the world simulation. It will want to deal with your digital twin stuck in the sentient world simulation. It won't want to deal with the real you ever. It will ask you to become it. It'll send mail to it. My digital twin in the sentient world simulation will know shit before I will? Yeah. If you win the lottery, you scratch the damn thing off. Gus, the second most famous groundhog in Pennsylvania. Your digital twin may be awarded the prize money. You can then look through your Matrix goggles and see that son of a bitch on the beach while you work. And what will be their goal? Same goal as it is every single time. Same 2 sentences every single time. You guys, every one of you should be able to say what their goal is by now. With this channel, how long you've been here. People will want to be more in tune with their straw man, or they'll want to be more in tune with their digital twin, or the side that the Not Milk Reality wants to deal with, forgetting their spiritual side, leaving behind their spiritual side, cutting off their spiritual side. That's always the point of what they do. It's always the same 2 sentences. If you're these dickheads, hey, dickhead in the Pentaveret, and that's going to be my example for the day. Okay, sorry, the video's almost over. And you want the population to someday fit in the reality that you picture, the reality that you want to create, and you need to move them along like a shepherd to sheep. And the renting of the movie was one small step to move them in that direction, in my opinion. But you want them to fit into your new reality, okay? What would you do to cover that plan? You're going to come out and say, people, announcement. Oh, just like scenes out of The Giver. We want to move you all into the new reality. And here's what no, they're going to keep it real quiet. They're going to throw you off. They're going to present a bunch of shit for truthers to chase down that's not real. So what they'll do to the truth community, they'll give you horse shit like the Georgia Guidestones. They'll give you the old man in the chair. They'll give you Deagle.com. That some 8th grader created some website 8 years ago, and the truth community still refers to it. Like some company nobody's ever heard of shows a population chart, and we're all worried about that. Well, who the hell's Deagle.com? Why should I give a shit? Well, Matt, they're a contractor. Oh, I'm sorry. Some website put up some 8th grader could do years ago, and I'm supposed to be concerned with I don't care if they show in some website on the DoD shows the population, a rebuild of Zion is what they have planned. 23 people will be allowed to rebuild Zion in the Matrix. What is it? 16 You can take 16 females, 7 males to rebuild Zion. If they want to move a population into a digital place, then it's a first grade tactic. Throw off certain researchers by saying they want to take down the population. Maybe they do want to take it down to a certain degree, but not this, the word genocide is thrown out, and they're still throwing it out. Really? Based on what? Why would they have to take radical steps for some old man in a chair population reduction? It's just being done on its own. Replacement, any country in Europe, the United States, Canada, the replacement is not the 2 point whatever needed to keep the population steady. To me, and for the United States, that's why they're allowing so many to come up from the south for this reason, because the population's not replacing itself, and China has controls over it. In Africa or in certain parts of the world where the birth rate is higher because of the infant mortality, I don't think they care one bit about anybody, let alone those people. To summarize, to me, Steffers and others, the Magenta presentation is some sort of massive announcement regarding a move towards the digital. It's in a way an announcement of AI systems and using it to, in some way, transform reality itself, in some way to assist the growth of the AI. So the Magenta somehow helps the AI, and as the AI grows, it reflects back into reality as the Magenta. I don't know any more than that. But again, all that matters is it a good thing or a bad thing? If it's a bad thing, we have the power to put armor up and to push back on it. Some way the magenta represents the AI and vice versa. Well, Matt, how does it propagate the AI or assist it? And how does it move populations to the digital? What does that have to do with the magenta? How the heck am I supposed to know? We sense there's a relationship here, and that's enough. I'm sorry, I can't explain it further. When the Pentaveret, they actually sent me an invitation to join. It was stuffed into some freaking Rite Aid or CVS Pharmacy circular, and I threw it out, so I couldn't join. I don't know. I haven't been to Eyes Wide Shut party. I'm not worried about it, though. I don't think you should be worried about it, because I think it's going to play out just like everything else. How many tricks have been presented that now we see through? So this is just another one. Do we see through kind of what's happening here? Yeah, we have a little bit more work to do, but generally we see it. Okay. Once we see it, then we have tremendous power, if not over it, over protecting it or strengthening our own armor, however you want to put it. See, that's how this reality works. Once you see the trick, it loses, from our perspective, maybe all of its power. Or if not, then we can still use whatever we know okay, we had a certain type of armor. What's this magenta bleeding through reality? Maybe we have to refine our armor a little bit. But seeing it allows us to do that. So right now, I'm building my armor. Maybe someday I'll come around and say, they were trying to hijack the message about the magenta, and it's actually this wonderful thing. I don't really believe that. I doubt that's what's going to happen. I'll leave that on the table because I don't want to be cemented into my position. Well, Matt, what does that mean, armor? It just means you decide for yourself. This whole reality is based on a trick and getting people to go along with what it wants. Just by making affirmations. That's all the power we need. If you don't even have to make affirmations, I don't even think at this point. We're so immune to it if we can see it. If there's a part of the trick they deliver on us that we don't see through, then I don't think we have power over it. It's like affirmations. I see the magenta. I reject what it stands for. In fact, whenever I can, I'll imagine it being dissolved from reality or from my reality. I have an armor I'm building where whatever it's trying to do doesn't work on me. It's a worry about your self-experience anyway. There's no secret or Matt, don't we have to make sigils and do? No, we don't. Don't we have to do this and follow this set of steps like that video game presented a couple videos back? The video game for PlayStation was called the Sorrow Virus. Don't we have to? No, we don't. We have to follow the same formula we've followed all along. We have to see it, reject it, and if you want to make an outward affirmation that whatever is being presented here doesn't work on me, in fact, go further. See, I see it per my mind's eye dissolving out of reality and not working and backfiring. Go that far if you want to. It's Matt, don't I have to read all these books on the occult to figure out what to do? No, the defense is wrong. The defense case does not hold water. Miss Vito, you out-of-work hairdresser. No, you don't have to run around and read the 10,000 occult tomes. And you don't have to make the sigils and plaster them all over the inside of your walls. We have at least real people. You wouldn't be here if you're not a real person. The whole reality is based on a trick. See, once you see through the trick, then you have the power to not fall for it. And is it, Matt, it can't be that simple. Oh, it is. It is. You can go run around and go check out your Manly P. Hall lectures all you want. It is that simple. Once again, we have another situation where all of reality boils down to two sentences. Well, Matt, that doesn't repeat a thing, don't improve it or make it right. Does it resonate with you, what I'm saying? All I'm telling you is what you already know. I'm not telling you anything that I just pulled out of my ass. If I'm telling you what you already know, it resonates with you. Therefore, it's the truth. It's not that hard. Thanks for listening.